Hey friends, one of the mistakes that many teachers make when they're teaching students how to respond to a question is to only look at the lines or sentence, phrase, or stanza that the question is asking about. The question we're going to look at today is from fourth grade. It only was referring to two lines, but because the question said, why? What is the reason that the author included those two lines of figurative language that happen to be personification? If that's the why, the cause, the effect is going to be after those lines. It was because of that figurative expression that he mentions or she mentions that causes the effect of some imagining. So let me use a couple of tools. I went to Dollar Tree and I got the 4 little boxes. What I suggest that you do is they have them in yellow, blue, green, and red, but they also have them in 4 other colors. That way, if you need to divide your poem or play, informative, persuasive, fiction, literary, nonfiction, passage slash genre into sections, you can color code them. And I'm also going to use Smarties and place one Smartie inside the box for each line that's in the stanza for the play. So if I was to box in this stanza number 1, which the question is referring to some lines in stanza 1, it would be red, so I would use a red crayon or colored pencil. And so let's take a look and see what could have caused only 40% of the kids in Texas in fourth grade to get this question correct. And so take the ideas you like and use them in your classroom, because I have to say that whatever is being used is not enough. So we need to use what I call the Bill MacDonalds of this world to supplement and show you a different way, what's known as explaining differently, and using visual, verbal, auditory, and kinesthetic responses to curriculums and programs that seem to be in many ways nothing but worksheets. And so the best sheet that works is you getting off the paper and doing something visual, verbal, auditory, or kinesthetic. This will be a kinesthetic strategy. So let me go straight to the question that I'm referring to. For the hundreds of you who asked me for the test, it's fourth grade. Even though some of you only asked me for one grade level or 2 or 3, I went ahead and sent you all of them so that you can use the rest of this month to look at every skill that I share in these free videos and kind of pick and choose the strategies that you like. So for the sake of a cause and effect text structure relationship, you could typically make a T-chart, but I use my teeter-totter, seesaw, transition between two ideas relationship. So let's take a look at the question and the answer choices. The question says, what is the most likely reason? And as soon as your kids see the word reason, they need to think why, as in cause. The poet includes the figurative language in lines 6 and 7 of the poem. So what's the cause? What's the reason for lines 6 and 7? Well, normally the reason for including something is because of something that happened just before it, or because of an effect that happens after it. So let's take a look and see. The answer choices say to suggest that the speaker's room is too quiet at night. So make an O, an oblong O, for opinion. So if in that stanza we read through it and we can see something, oh, it's too quiet in here, then we're going to be able to justify the use of personification. And right now you don't even know what personification is. So B, to emphasize what cause the speaker to imagine something. So if the figurative language that's used on line 6 and 7, the cause, what happens first, causes the speaker to start imagining something afterwards, then that would be the effect. To describe objects that cannot be seen during the night. And I was thinking, okay, if I'm going to describe objects that cannot be seen, I'll be talking about perhaps their size, their shape, their color, their texture, other things like that. And since that's not there, I'm going to let you know right now that's not the answer choice because that's not mentioned. Objects are mentioned, but not their description, not adjectives that describe how many or what shape or what size or what color. D was to emphasize why the speaker's room is too dark and quiet. So one, it says it is too dark and quiet opinion. And the second one says why it's too dark and quiet. Okay. So it's also an opinion, but they focus on the reason. As you can see, the biggest distractors, the correct answer is going to be B. What causes the speaker to start imagining something? In other words, the lines that we're going to look at. And then this one here, the speaker's room is too quiet at night. And so your kids are going to have to understand there's a big difference between fact and opinion. And anything that I say, oh, you're too noisy, you're too quiet, you're too mean, you're too nice, you're too whatever, those are opinions. And so if we don't find opinions in the passage, or in this case, the poem, you can't select an answer that focuses on an opinion. But 1/4 of the students did. So let's take a look at my cause and effect text structure relationship on the revising graphic organizer. It said, what was the reason that the author uses figurative, that the reason the figurative language on line 6 and 7. And so here's line 6 and 7 on the first part. And the reason I have it on this left side is because we said it's going to be like a cause. And so the cause is, as you see here in red above, the relationship between the two ideas. Line 6, the curtain has a way of line 7 whispering to the shade. Since curtains cannot whisper, that's why it's called figurative language. 4th grade, number 33, 40%. And so then we look forward at 8. Shapes begin to bump and play as though two things, ghosts had things to say. So I don't think that things are actually playing with each other. I don't think that there's ghosts that are talking to each other, being in this case the curtain and the shade. So as you can see here, the author is imagining that that happened because it's a reaction to the appearance of the curtain having a quiet conversation with the shade. So let's take a look at the stanza. 1 through 10, 11, 12, 13. And so let's listen to if there's any opinions about quietness. Of course, there's nothing in the night that isn't there by day, except that sometimes. Nothing here. So basically, there's really so far saying that there's no comparison between night and day. Okay. Why do I have yellow before the lines being asked about? Well, sometimes you do the Michael Jackson moonwalk and check the lines or sentences or phrases before. And sometimes you do the Michael J. Fox Back to the Future and check the lines afterwards. And so, since this is known as the cause, the reason, it would have made sense for your kids to check the effect, what happened after that those two lines were mentioned. I have 4 in the box. That means 4 lines have been read so far. By moonlight, nothing about opinions. The curtain has a way of whispering to the shade. That's the lines they're asking about. Why is that personification there? What was his reasoning? Well, it causes him to have this effect of starting to imagine things. Shapes begin to bump and play. He's not really seeing that. He's imagining that as though two ghosts had things to say. Kind of rhymes, huh? So this is not blank verse where it's just no rhyme, no rhythm, just meaning. But this one has rhyming because we have shade and afraid, say and play. So let's see what we got so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got to read a couple more. And suddenly, I'm afraid. So the first event, sort of, is him thinking that the curtain and shade are having a conversation. He starts to imagine them playing with and bumping each other. He starts to imagine they're like little ghosts. And we get an emotion, I'm afraid. That's called telling. He didn't see, hear, he didn't show here what he does when he's afraid. And so kind of do what I call a teachable moment of instruction where you show your kids this is telling because you see the emotion word. Showing would be take out the word afraid and write down what you do because you're afraid. Like, did he begin to tremble? Did he start to stutter in speech? Did he run away? What was his reaction? And so here we have a cause and an effect relationship. You start seeing things. So there's nothing here about the room being too dark. There has to be details, what I call dum-tums, uh, in order for us to say that the Smarties, the 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 stanza has anything to do with opinions, and it was only based on uh, imagining, not imagery, but his imagination of what was possibly happening when he feels like there's a conversation going on between two inanimate objects. So these are 4 for $1 at Dollar Tree. When you see them, they're in the birthday party section, and you can get yellow, blue, green, and red. And then there's some more off colors. And that way you can kind of use the Smarties to count how many details slash dum-dums slash sentences slash Smarties are inside that stanza that we will call number 1. So you might want to have the kids label somewhere, highlight um, that where the question is. So if you're on the line, then when you drop down the notes, you write question 33, lines 6 and 7, and you can write the word red because the red has to do with the question. Moving back has to do with your answer, and moving forward is uh, the fast forwarding. I want to show you something that I made. It'll just take me 1 second. I'm gonna pause for a second. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to show you what I'm gonna call my narrative remote, because even though this was a poem, because it was written in form of sort of a story form that just happened to rhyme. I want you to notice all the colors here are black except for two. The green is for fast forwarding, moving forward, and the yellow is for rewinding. Just like you would on a remote, you can move forward or backwards. In a movie, you can move forward or backwards in a play. So when you flip it over, you can see fast forwarding means read the next one or two sentences, or in this case, the next one or two lines, more if you need to. And the rewinding is reread the previous one or two sentences or the previous one or two lines. Um, Sometimes it might be a little bigger than that, but in most cases, you just need to read a little bit. But I think this is kind of a cool way. Um, Remember that when kids struggle with reading, like they did in this case, 40% getting an answer correct, we have to teach difficult things using things that are simple and that they use all the time. They, as in your kids, your students. So um, your students would need to have pushed fast forward, since the question, the focus, read the title, the topic, the main idea of the question. There we go. The question was about the figurative language on lines 6 and 7. Then they were going to have to fast forward, because if this was the cause, then the effect would have been whatever you read on the next several smarties slash details slash dum dums slash sentences slash uh, lines in the case of this poem. So um, I think that this is going to be a cool addition. Those of you who are in the CREST training, if you don't already have my story narrative remote, this new one that I made just a couple weeks ago, make sure you email me and I'll send that to you. Um, if you are not in my um, Crest online training and you would like a free copy of this, I think it'll be helpful. Just email me at writing_doctor@yahoo.com and I'll send it to you, because there are so many questions related to fiction, literary nonfiction, plays that are just a conversation in the order of things that happen in terms of scenes, and many poems that are written in the form of a story in first person present tense or first person past tense. This poem, so I'm looking at it, it's written in first person, and it's written pretty much in present tense, things that are happening as the author is telling them one detail at a time. So please do me a favor and share this with all of your reading teacher friends. Many of you who are fourth grade teachers have been my friends on here the longest because it used to be, unfortunately, that only fourth grade in elementary would do writing as a tested subject, uh, and then we had seventh, ninth, and 10th. But now everybody gets to play the game that I call all of us, not just me, one grade level, and hopefully not just me, one teacher in the grade level. I think that everyone should practice open-ended questions and answers where you ask your kids a question you about a topic and they have to give you some idea in the form of a sentence, the answer to the question, because once we do start doing short answer, in order to get a one, your kids have to answer a question and hopefully they'll do it in a complete sentence and they have to give the evidence and in most cases the where. I lost you guys. My power went out. Hopefully I didn't lose everything. Uh, we'll see what happens. And this, my power went out just for a moment. So hopefully I didn't lose this video.